It's that time again, let's get crafty. So there was a little bit of a mishap. This was supposed to be last week's project. Because of this mishap, it had to get rejigged. So here we are. We have one large storage book box for knickknacks. I wanted to do 3 or 4 this size, but because I bought this at Hobbycraft, it was £7. That was a little bit out of my budget for this project, so I thought I would order online, and I ordered 4 book boxes online. So when you order online, you really should check the size of things. So unfortunately, I now have 4 absolutely miniature books and 1 normal sized book. So I had to change the scope of this project just a little bit. However, this is the plan. I've got them on my phone here, but I'm gonna put them on screen so that you can see them a bit better. The first one is going to be peacock themed. So the outside cover is going to be royal blue and green with a peacock feather on the front and maybe some other feathers on the top and bottom of it. I think I've got some real peacock feathers somewhere, so I think I might paint the outside of this book and then try and stick and seal a couple of peacock feathers onto the front, which I think would look really good. And the inside of this one is going to be a pink and purple mix. So the next book that I want to work on is I'm calling this the goddess themed book. It's going to have a lovely voluptuous pagan goddess on the front with filigree, and that's going to be raised in purple. And we're going to have a pink and orange colour scheme for the cover. And the inside, I'm going to go ham on this project with gold leaf. The inside of this is going to be gorgeous gold leaf, very shiny. The next book I've called Fire and Ash because I wanted the outside of it to look scorched and burnt with a campfire symbol on the front. Not sure about the inside of this one. I've designed it as another gold leaf interior. However, I think I've got some decoupage paper that might look good in it, so we might go with that instead. The next book is going to have a tree of life on the front, and the colour scheme for this one is going to be cream and green. And the interior is going to be a decoupage collage, very floral, very pastel-y, sort of springtime. And the final book here is, I think I called this one Book of Magic. It's going to be purple and blue colour scheme with gold accents, and we're going to have a cauldron in the middle bubbling with crossed or closely crossed broomsticks, and definitely the interior of this one's going to be gold. My plan is to use papier-mâché mainly, mix between papier-mâché and like a papier-mâché pulp to build up the textures and designs. I also want to put ribbons sticking out of the bottom of the book so it looks like it's got like chapters and it's being actively read. With that being said, it's going to be a very messy project. I'm gonna have to make a big bowl of pulp. The plan is to spend this evening getting all of the papier-mâché done so that tomorrow I can just do all of the colour, all of the accents, all of the like pretty stuff. But that does mean that today we're gonna get messy. So without further ado, let's go! Okay, so as always, I'm covering my desk in a towel to stop things from getting too chaotic. I get all of my materials together, the books, the PVA glue, a bowl and some newspaper. I start ripping my newspaper into strips. Then mixing PVA with a little bit of water, I give the front covers of the book a first coat. I am not being delicate, and we're going for an aged, wrinkled look here, so I'm crumpling the paper as I apply it and start building up the texture. Once all the front covers are done, I give them a top coat of PVA and leave them to dry. I sat them on a towel on the radiator on a low heat, and look how my lantern lights it up. Once that had dried, I did the same to the back covers, being liberal in both paper and glue. The spines were more fiddly, but it was the same process with thinner strips. This time I left the already raised parts because I wanted to maintain the shape of them. Now to find some ribbons. Rifling through my far too large sewing bag, an even larger collection of random ribbon. I decided on some colours that fit each book's theme. I then cut around 2 inches length of each of them, just enough to poke out of the bottoms of the books. I take some of them and, folding them in half long ways, snip the ends to form a dovetail. And on the others I frayed the ends to make them look like the bottom of a bookmark. Taking my glue gun, I glue the ribbon directly onto the mache surface, and trimming some of the lengths to sit staggered out of the bottom. My glue gun was playing up, so I checked the batteries, and they're for low-powered products. Great. So the very last ribbon I stick on with tape. It won't matter when the pulp covers it. They already look super cute even sat like this. Leaving my battery quest till the morning, we move into day 2. Okay, it is day 2. I really wanted to get what I'm calling the pulp layer done last night, but I was working till 9 PM on this, and I was super tired. The size and scale of them is really throwing me for a loop. I think I still designed too much detail in my plan. What I'm gonna do to begin with is go over the dried papier-mâché with just like a black marker, just to put the design on the front, and I can figure out whether I'm either going to use glue gun or papier-mâché pulp to create the raised up designs on it. So let's cut to that. I start in pencil, but quickly switch to Sharpie and start roughly drawing out the designs for each book. I didn't want it to be too perfect or have too much detail, as I was already worried about the super small scale. This was where I made the executive decision to have the large book become the peacock one. It was time for the pulp. Ominous. I start by tearing newspaper into teeny tiny pieces. They begin about 1 centimetre big, but my patience does not keep up for that long. Once the bowl is pretty full, I add some toilet roll too, and to be honest, at this point I wish I'd only used that, as it was tearing into fluffy pieces rather than shiny pieces like the newspaper. Time to soak the mix and look at that satisfying steam. After letting it soak for 10 minutes and using a spoon, I start to mix it. After a few minutes of frantically stirring it, I grab some gloves and get in there. All I'm trying to do is break up the lumps and make it a little smoother. Treating it like a grey, soupy dough. Then I add some PVA and spoon that into it. Feeling unsure, I add some more toilet roll and whip it some more. And this is what we are left with. The grey stuff. And my brain is just...
Try the grey stuff, it's delicious.
So I thought I would come over and have a little chat, and adjusted the microphone and completely broke the mic stand. So that's gonna make everything really interesting from now on. Woo! So I don't know whether I should take this as a warning. Just broken my mic stand, and I'm currently looking at a bowl of what looks like gruel. And it's been a very long time since I've done anything pulp related. I don't know how it's gonna go, I don't know how it's gonna dry. I'm very terrified. It looks very lumpy still, so I'm hoping that I can work with that. This microphone stand breaking is not ideal. Shit. Well, pulling my big girl pants up by the bootstraps. Wait, what? I start with bare hands, picking up a pinch of pulp and slopping it onto the sides of the box where the pages would be. It is indeed very lumpy and not entirely fun to work with. But I've started, and so I will finish. one memory is permeating here. This is probably a UK school thing, but it may even be a back end of nowhere UK school thing, where people would wet loo roll and then throw it onto the ceiling where it would dry, and you'd see these hideous stalactites of aged loo roll hanging down. Ah, school. Truly one's best years. I left these to dry for an hour, but I was getting anxious that they wouldn't dry at all, and my solution to that is to add a papier-mâché toilet roll layer over the top and to top coat that with PVA. Just before it's dry, I take a needle and score some lines into the surface to add the texture of the pages to it. And just in case, I let this dry overnight. Day 3. Wielding brand new pricey batteries and sorting the glue gun issue, I started raising the designs on the book cover as best I can. Starting with the smallest and most fiddly books. It actually goes so much better than I expect it to. Next is the insides. And for the peacock book, I wanted to build up a tissue paper collage, working from dark to light. So I start with purple on the outside and pink on the inside, building up a rough gradient. I found this gorgeous decoupage paper and simply had to use it. Tearing small scraps, I cover the whole inside of the box. And honestly, I am fighting not to cover everything I own in it. More collage, and an unhealthy amount of paper scraps. Choosing some scraps to fit the vibe of the tree book and the burned book, I find a variety of music paper, old book pages, colourful bits. Completely overestimating how much I would need, I also select some vellum, and trim some bits of scrapbook paper that had cute little nature pictures on it. I then begin on the two smallest boxes, covering and layering with PVA and paper until the whole interior is covered. Look at this adorable little bird who simply had to be featured. Gold leaf. I am simply obsessed. Starting by coating the surface in the gilding medium, I then lay the gold leaf down so carefully, trying not to waste any, and have a lovely smooth application. I then use a dry paintbrush to tap it into the corners and fold excess back onto itself. It doesn't really get more technical than that. But it's one of those instant gratification crafts. I am so happy with how these look, even though they're so much smaller than I'd anticipated. However, there was a few more things I wanted to add. Bitten by the gold leaf bug, I add small flecks of gold onto the gorgeous decoupage paper, tearing the leaf off with my fingers and stamping it down with my thumb. I also decide to do the inside cover edge with the gold leaf also. And this is how it looks, so much better. I should have used paint. But fully under control of the gold leaf bug, I wanted more. Deciding to also cover the pages area with gold leaf too, I go in much more chaotically. Gold flakes flying everywhere, I persisted on and on. It was rough, it was flaky, but I was enamoured. So enamoured, the large book also got gold pages. And moving on to a second coat of tissue paper for the inside. I start adding some deeper blue tones to the outside and light pinks in the centre, and I start building the gradient in between with more pinks and purples. Then I cover that in a final layer of PVA. Gold leaf was getting everywhere, so I tidied up a little bit and shook off the towel to start afresh. Now for the outsides. The Goddess book gets a tissue paper collage on the outside. But deciding that I lost the detail of the raised designs, I decided to paint the rest. I do a base coat of silver on the tree book. and gold on the burned book. The cauldron book got a gradient of blue and purple with some of the silver mixed into it. And I start with what I consider to be peacock colours. Purple in the centre to highlight the feathers, fading to blue and then green outwards. I do love these colours together. Setting them all down to dry, I look down to the tissue paper collage my floor is starting to have and decide to tidy up. Time for the second coat, and some well-needed green on the tree book. I'm mostly using dry brushing for this as it creates that dimensional weathered colour. I add some orange and black to the burned book, again dry brushing, and this one is definitely my favourite. The second coat on the rest is fairly straightforward, building up the gradients, adding to the vibrance. This part is just about checking what bits aren't painted and painting them. I used gold paint, which was so much easier than the leaf and gave a duller shine. I then sealed everything with varnish and let it dry for an hour. Taking my peacock feathers and glue gun, I attached 3 peacock feathers to the front of the book. Not really knowing how to seal it, I just sort of slop varnish all over it and leave it to dry. While that's drying, I start detailing the front of the other books with gold, black and silver paint pens, highlighting over the raised glue. This gold pen is so gorgeous, but is absolutely the sloppiest one I've ever worked with. So I managed to drip a giant gold mark onto the front and decide to black that out with Sharpie and paint over it. I then use the gold for the goddess book, black for the burned book, and I use silver for the tree book. And deciding I don't like the silver on the tree book, I change it for black. I then scrub some rough lines along the edge of the paper, making them look worn and crinkled. So here's how they look now. And I'm certain they're almost done. The varnish had darkened the colours of the peacock feathers, unsurprisingly, so I dry brushed some colour back onto them and painted over the blobs that the glue gun had left. I trimmed the edges of the feathers and feel a lot better about how it looks, though I'm full of regret from using the feathers at all. Still trying to salvage it, I begin highlighting some details in gold and add some gold feather spindles coming from the feathers. I also add details to the spine and back, drawing a peacock feather and Roman numerals on the side. Not sure why I chose 4. I then did the same on the other books, filling the other numerals to make them a collection. And with that, I was done. And that's all there is. Still got my broken microphone, but we're making it work. So I think the turning point for me was finding the real peacock feathers, because I think that's what made me decide to change. Originally, the larger book was supposed to be the design with the cauldron on the front. That's why I factored more detail into it. Found the real peacock feathers, and I was like, nope, the big book, I've got to show these feathers off. And I think I saved it. I managed to salvage it towards the end, but I'm still not 100% happy with how that one looks. The other 4 are chef's kiss, amazing. I'm so happy with them. I'm not 100% sure what's going to live in all of them at the moment and where their final home are going to be, but I'm super happy with how it turned out, and I hope you enjoyed watching another nifty little craft project to make my home more whimsical. If you like what you see, don't forget to hit like. If you want to stick around, hit subscribe. And until next time, make room for a little more whimsy in your life.